want to make sure you understand the significance of why we're having this meeting today and this gathering today on discussion of the old man. See, what a lot of people don't know, even a lot of these young people today don't know, is the reason we have an old man today in Pembroke is because of the Tuscarora Indian Nation. So in the 1970s, this building was burned. And the people of this community were all around in Pembroke. They wanted this building completely demolished. They had even got as far as bringing bulldozers out here, and setting them up to demolish this place. So some of these ladies right here have told me the stories time and time again about how they locked hands and how they joined hands and told the state, the law enforcement, they're not going to tear this building down. But today, this building is presented as a building that was set aside for Lumbee education. The building is considered a building that was created solely for the betterment of the Lumbee people. The history has been lied. People have manipulated. They have revised history. But these ladies are living witnesses to the fact that they helped to save the building from being destroyed. This gentleman right here, I want all of you to really know, Bellecourt. He's one of the leaders of the American Indian movement. And he's been coming here ever since the 1970s to work with the Tuscarora people and others, and even the Lumbee in the community. But as I told Vernon, we didn't start this war. We were born into it. And that's why we take the position we take today as the Tuscarora Nation. We want equal ground here in Robertson County. We want equal ground in the state of North Carolina. This particular gentleman here is the reason why you have the funding that you have today as it goes to Native American education. He is the reason why you have so many equal opportunities today for people in Robertson County who are Native Americans and also minorities as a whole. Even the history about him has been distorted. There's 4 books that are in these universities today that speak of him in the American Indian movement in the 1970s, 80s, and into the 90s in Robertson County. People don't understand. He was here for them. The young people have been taught that the American Indian movement was not for the people. This man is a living witness that they are for. And they were then and they are now. And so I want to introduce him because when I was a child, I would hear him speak. He would come to North Carolina. A lot of people didn't take the words that he said to heart. They didn't take what he said and do something about it. But many of us have. That's why we've got him here today. And I want all of you to welcome him as a relative. Treat him as an uncle. Because in the traditional way, he's your uncle. He's your elder. But if you let him leave North Carolina without sitting and talking to him about so many things he has to offer, you would have missed so much. So much. People wonder why I have the mind I have today. I have the heart that I have today. I got some of it from him. He gave me a little bit of his love, his energy, respect. He gave me so much hope. And him, and so many others before him, have given this to me in my life. So if you pass up the opportunity not to know him, we have all lost something. We've all lost something because we as the Tuscarora Nation have got to become of one mind, one heart, one body, one spirit. We have to renew our ceremonies. We have to renew each other. Joe Logan over here, the United Nations. How many of you know him? How many of you have sit and talked to him? He's been coming down here for months and months and months. So if you don't talk to him, if you don't know him, the mind's not going to be right. The spirit's not going to be right. So I want to ask Vernon to come up and make his statement and make a speech to you and all. Just hear what he has to say and take it to heart. Because you will never be respected as a nation. Don't. Thank you. Wow.
It's always good to get back among my relatives, all the dear friends that I met beginning in 1972 when we were with more than 200 and some of the Tuscarora people and Lumbees at that time were part of the Trail of Broken Treaties march on Washington, D.C. We changed history for Indian people. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But first of all, I want to acknowledge, as I sat over here, my heart felt warm sitting here in beautiful sunshine. To hear a young man speaking in his language, the Tuscarora language, offering blessings, offering prayer. Indeed, something that we've experienced across the country, that many of our young people are beginning to learn their languages and carry on the spiritual tradition. I heard a drum group here. I don't know how long since they've had a drum group here, but I heard these young men singing the American Indian Movement song. And as I traveled across the country, I find in many communities, both in the urban and in the reservation communities, that young men and young women are also carrying on those traditions. So I heard a man speaking in the Tuscarora language. I heard a Tuscarora drum group singing the American Indian Movement song. And I see a large group of beautiful people before me who are Tuscarora. So, you must be Tuscarora, and there must be a Tuscarora nation. We are very fortunate to also have with us a man who I've worked with for close to 38, 40 years, Red Crow Westerman, who has not only been on the front lines of this struggle as long as I can remember, and through his music and through his words, he has brought our message to the world, up into the Amazonian valleys with the indigenous people. He has brought the fight. And he brought the sweat out. So that's part of what we see with this spiritual rebirth, the spiritual renaissance that's taking place. Since women like this, who were there on the Trail of Broken Treaties, were on the longest walk, were out front of Prospect School, were carried off with us in buses to the jail in Lumbee. I see a young man wearing the bonnet of the chief of Tuscarora people. See that rebirth of culture, political consciousness, philosophical consciousness about the importance of who we are as a people, where we've come from, where we're at today, and where we're going tomorrow. Chris, of course, Chris Hardison will say more about the Nearoka massacre site of the Tuscarora Nation. But we just issued a statement, and I want to congratulate this man from the Robesonian Journal who came here today. It's also difficult to get the media out on Saturday. They all have families, they have events planned. You oftentimes have to have these take place during the week at their convenience. But the pressures that we are putting out today are going out throughout the world by Monday. On our website, aimovement.org. We broadcast on 2 television channels and 3 radio channels. WAIM television and WAIM radio, web television and web radio. So if the media is not here, they're going to get this press release. Perhaps they will do something with it, perhaps they won't. But on Monday at about 10 to 11 in the morning, we're going to be at that site of the 1713 massacre. With the tragedy of the shootings at Virginia Tech, and as we said in our statement, we also grieve for the families of those victims. But we also grieve at the memory of what happened to our people and to the Tuscarora people. The people at Sand Creek, Wounded Knees, Washington Creek. Our sacred Mother Earth is stained with the blood of 16 million or more of our people. Victims of mass murder. All the media were reporting that the tragedy of 32 deaths at Virginia Tech was America's greatest mass killing. We're totally in denial, and we have to set the record straight. Robert Kennedy, who was also the victim of violence, as was his brother John. Somebody asked me the other day, who do you think the best president that offered hope to Indian people? I have to first of all acknowledge that, ironically, Richard Nixon probably gave back more land, like the sacred Blue Lake to the cows. But appreciate that, regardless of the type of person this man was. John Kennedy offered hope. Robert Kennedy always said that America can never achieve its true greatness until they right the wrongs done to the American Indians. On the 11th of this month, the state legislature passed a resolution on a vote of 117-0, apologizing for slavery. It's evil, it's brutality. And finally, Robert Kennedy said, North Carolina will never achieve its true greatness until they pass a resolution and the governor signs it into law, a proclamation, not only apologizing to the Tuscarora nation and other peoples who perished in this state, but to take that land and restore it to a memorial to the American Holocaust against the Tuscarora people and against the other native people of North Carolina. And hopefully on that memorial we'll live the hundreds of massacres, mass killings of our men, women, and children. King Joseph of the Nez Perce, Indiaton, the Alakan. His father's name was Tukin. Joseph said, as my father lay on his deathbed, he took my hand, he said, son, never sell the land where the bones of your ancestors lie. A man who would not protect sacred sites of his ancestors is worse than an animal. And that's strong words, because even an animal would not dig up the remains of their own kind. And yet in the vaults of Eastern Carolina University, other museums and institutions, they hold the skeletal remains of your great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers, children, babies, funerary, sacred objects. We are calling and we are demanding, and this will go out again to all the media. It will be broadcast worldwide that these institutions in North Carolina immediately support the restoration of that land to the Tuscarora Nation, build a memorial to the American Holocaust against indigenous people, and build a center for education, a museum, an art center where the sacred objects of our ancestors can be housed and put in a place of respect, and the skeletal remains of your ancestors be returned to the bosom of sacred Mother Earth. So with that, I should tell you all that I worried off my foot. I was in a bad car accident. I'm trying to recover, but I've got a lot of metal in my foot. I have a hard time going through those things when I go on a flight. But with that, I want to ask our good brother, and let's have a good reception for Floyd Westerman.
Well, I wish we could go sit down, elders, friends.
That's good.
Because I'm going to speak for about 3 hours here. But I just want to make it short that I think Vernon and I have been on this road for the justice that all Indian nations seek. And how you get started one day, you wake up and you say, there's injustice going on. And you start doing something. And that's where and why I'm involved. Well, you might have seen me in the movie Dancing with Wolves, so it gives me a bigger voice to go out and speak about these things. So people already recognize me from Walker, Texas Ranger. I never tried to hide that. But beyond all that, beyond what I do, really is what I am, is to be part of the struggle of Indian nations in this hemisphere. I'm going down tomorrow, and I'll be going down to the Taino Indians in the island who met Columbus. We're going to hold ceremonies and link the two hemispheres with them. We're going to do a 4-day fire, and then the elders speak, and we're going to exchange ceremonies and offer gifts. And we're going to bring the hemisphere back, because it's coming back, like Vern says. In Venezuela, we got an Indian president. We got in Bolivia, we got an Indian president. Evo Morales. And in Rigoberto Menchú is running for president of Mexico in the next election. So Guatemala. And so that's a big picture changing. We should keep a global view all the time, what's going on. And a global view is now America wants energy, so they're going to go back after Indian land. That's why they want to terminate our treaties. They want to get uranium because Bush is pushing for uranium. And uranium is Pandora's box in a sense. Once it jumps out, you can't put it back in the ground because the waste will never keep destroying and be it's so corrupt. It corrupts everything in nature, and the worst thing, it corrupts the water. We're going to need water soon. We'll be drinking out of puddles like that pretty soon because this country is going to run short of water. The lights are going to go out. We better prepare, and I think Tuscarora traditions are going to help people to survive. And that doesn't mean that you're going to survive with a lot of food and a lot of all this. It's spiritual survival. That's the only way you're going to make it through this what's coming up. I believe in those things. The power of the spiritual survival in every culture. And so, I'm part of whatever struggle you're part of, we're part of the same thing. Our survival, we need each other to that common voice. And we need the Lumbees and the Tuscaroras to stand together stronger. We need Chippewas and the Sioux to get out there stronger. So, because Chippewas live with traditional enemies.
Bring those women back before we can have
Here's a joke, that Tlingits and Haidas are traditional enemies in the Northwest. Tlingits and Haidas, for centuries they've been traditional enemies. That's why you never see a Tlingit in a Haida bed. You never see a Tlingit in a Haida bed? But anyway, it's been nice to be part of whatever it is. And the press conference, to appreciate the press coming up, because we're not seen in American society. We're almost transparent. We are so small in numbers that America just goes right by us. And daily, they never see Indians. This comedian Chris Rock said, "You Negroes better chill out. You think you got it bad? You know who got it bad? The American Indian. Since when's the last time you seen an Indian walking down the street? Or an Indian family chilling out at Red Lobster?" That's a rare thing. You never see us out around here in all these lectures. You guys see, even us here, the numbers that you have here. But you know what's changing? They came with a Bible. The Bible said nothing about Mother Earth. And that's why they're in such a mess. Pollution went mess. The Bible said nothing about Mother Earth. We, Indians, the earth is our Bible. We go far beyond what Christian thinking is about the earth. If they had lived our ways when Columbus came, you could still drink out of rivers because they were sacred. We know that. That's a teaching. We've got to take it to them. We're going to take it to them in many ways. I'm creating a worldwide talk show with Al Gore and Willie Nelson to be some of the first guests on talking about the Indian point of view on how life should be. The Indian point of view is never heard, or you turn on Oprah, you never see an Indian. You turn on Larry King, you never see an Indian speaking about the point of view. So now it's our turn now. Ryan DeLoya once wrote a book. They've corrupted our land to the point even they can't survive on it, and they're putting us in that same place where we cannot survive here because of pollution. I think there's better thinking that should take place in this world. So the reason why better thinking isn't there is we need more women in power. Our cultures are matriarchal, and the Christian belief Indian people. The chief said what have to do, they have to make decisions in grandmothers, and if the grandmothers didn't approve, that chief had to go back and make it fit. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be in America. We got to take that to America. Teach America how to run themselves. That's the decision. Half the Senate or half Congress should be women. That way, probably wouldn't even have the war. You wouldn't be losing the kids' war when you can talk it out. You know what? We fought a war and lost over 3,000 men and women, and the names say all the Iraqi families destroyed, and millions are fleeing. for oil, and now we're cutting back on oil. We don't want oil. We fought it for oil, and now we don't want it. What is that? It's a terrible conflict that's going on. Well, whatever it is, because you know, it's like Bush. He's really he's kind of like a young fraternity boy who's never done anything. He was a cheerleader at Yale. Cheerleader at Yale. Think about that. Cheerleader for president. We got to really straighten out that people how they pick the leaders in this country, and it's about the environment for the children. The environment for the children. We're going to create a walk from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., and East America about all of this. And February 2nd, we're leaving from San Francisco, and we'll walk all the way across. Dennis Banks, of course, Vern's part of this, I am. We're going to create a walk again, the second longest walk, because they're going to terminate our treaty so we can get our resources and get the uranium out, get all the resources, so they can keep turning on the lights and air conditioning. Man's going to pay for his comforts. Man's going to pay for that air conditioning. Man's going to pay for it. And you know what's happening? The spirits are coming. We see the water as a water spirit, and it's coming. You see it happening every day. If it rains, something happens. You see the wind and the tornadoes. That's the wind spirits. They're coming. They're all coming to humble man for the way he's treated Mother Earth. The spirits coming to speak out for our Mother Earth for what they've done to Mother Earth. We all have to be under and aware of those kind of teachings of us. All right, thank you. We'll talk about that. Down here, it's a big challenge because we have less of voices down here in the press. In Minneapolis, we grab them anytime. But that's where it is. We're the headquarters in Minneapolis. Every time we call them up, they get down there. Here, man, like we're transparent. We're like going by a Kmart or something.
Right, the dudes living in a box truck state.
That's right.
They don't want it to kill all of
But that guilt is the reason why they don't want to look at us. There's a good thing that we're there, but they don't want to look at us the whole time. Because pretty soon they'll be calling us the immigrants. Pretty soon they'll be calling us the illegal aliens. That's what, they don't want that to nail them with that. So I think people, we have been on the defensive for 500 years. But now that the land is so corrupted, and we have a spiritual relationship with Earth, whereas nobody else in this country has that relationship with Earth. Mother Earth is first. And they don't see it that way. They corrupted our land within 500 years to where they can't even live on it now. Our land, they stole the land, and then they corrupted it to the point they can't even live on it now. So you know where we are. We're on
Another comment I wanted to make. I wanted to thank my young nephew here, Timothy Jacobs, for his very kind words. But what impressed me most of all is that we all come from an oral tradition. We didn't have a written. We didn't have to write down to remind ourselves, or read from something to remind ourselves what we felt or understood about them. And so I see young people like Timothy Jacobs, very articulate, young messenger, not only for the cause of the Tuscarora people, for the cause of all Indian people and all others without the power of rights. But I want to urge our young men and our young women, if you're not aware of the issues that Indian people are dealing with, there's a tremendous amount of information about issues that we dealt with, continue to deal with, on our website, aimovement.org. Read. We are taking our cause since 19 81 or 82, actually 1977, we held the first international conference on the rights of indigenous people at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. In 1982, we were drafting a declaration on the rights of indigenous people. Since then, indigenous people from countries worldwide have joined us in this effort. And yet we held a meeting with Vernon in his home at on May 14th. And so you got to become and when you go on our website, you can go to International Indian Treaty Council. It's IITC, and you can go then to the IITC file, and you can get a copy of the draft declaration, which deals with all of the various issues that indigenous people here and throughout the world are dealing with. But we want young men and young women to become aware, become informed, and to not be afraid to speak out. Take a stand. All of the gains that we made as Indian people weren't done by our elected tribal leadership. I'll repeat that. All of the gains that we have made, none of it was done by our elected tribal leadership. The role they play is administration of federal and state funds, social services, housing, health care. Many of them are doing good, many of them are even doing bad. So if we're going to bring about change, if you're going to protect your sacred cemeteries like Tuscarora, it's you that have to take the stand. You have the wisdom, you have to organize. The American National Board was trying to govern. We organized according to what was necessary for us at that time. But you can organize that way, or you can organize your own tradition. Longhouse system or whatever. You got people like friend over here, Mr. Logan, that down here helping you. I know over the years you've had Mad Bear Anderson, you've had other Six Nations, chiefs and grandmothers down here to help you. And we'll continue to stand by you as well. Finally, I want to say something about this drum group here. I'm really impressed. You know, and I don't say this every community I go to, because I hear young people learning how to sing, and they do that egg song. That was one of the best versions of the American Indian song that I've heard in a long time. And I want to see more young men and more up to that drum. I want to see more of our young women in their beautiful shawls and buckskin, needle hoops in their hair, dancing on it. That's what this is all about. It's the foundation of our nation. It's our spiritual ceremony and tradition and our culture. Of course, everything else, economic, politically, that's part of the tree of life as well, the roots of the tree of life. So, I wanted to say that much now, and I guess we're going to, Retro and I are going to join some of you and we'll get some good coffee. Be good. Thank you very much.
I'd like people to talk.